Lingportal Online School presents
Relative clauses. Often, many of us want to add additional information about something during conversation. Here are some examples of adding additional information. This is a new bike. It is very powerful and fast. This statement can instead be said in a single sentence. This is a new bike that is very powerful and fast. Also, using the relative clauses means that there's no need to repeat information. She sent a Christmas card to her daughter, who lives in the UK. Defining and non-defining. There are two types of relative clauses. Defining relative clause tells which noun we're talking about. Non-defining gives us extra information about something. Let's look at each type closer. Defining relative clauses. We use defining clauses to give essential information about something or someone. This means information that we need in order to understand what or who is being referred. We usually use a relative pronoun, for example, who, which, whose, whom, and that, to introduce a defining relative clause. A definite clause usually comes immediately after the noun it describes. I saw a teacher who lives next door. If I don't say who lives next door, no one can understand which teacher I mean. So, who lives next door is the essential information. These are the people who want to buy my car. If I don't say who want to buy my car, no one can understand which people I mean. So, who want to buy my car is the essential information. Please note, in informal spoken English, in defining relative clauses, we often use that instead of who, which, whose. These are the people that want to buy my car. The relative pronoun can define subject or object of the verb. For example, the people who live in the village are very friendly. The house which cost 1 million. They have a son who is a lawyer. I met a woman who studied English. Please note, we often leave the relative pronoun when it is the object of the verb. For example, they're the people I met at the office. When the relative pronoun is the subject or object of the relative clause, we don't use another personal pronoun because the subject or object is the same. Marie Curie is the woman that discovered radium. That is the subject of the relative clause, so we don't need another personal pronoun. We had a rest at the hotel which Alex recommended. Which is the object of the relative clause, so we don't need another personal pronoun. Non-defining relative clauses. We use non-defining relative clauses to give unnecessary extra information about the thing or person. For example, John, who I work with, won the lottery. In this sentence, the information who I work with isn't necessary, but it is additional information. Please note, we don't use that to introduce a non-defining relative clause. I met my father in town yesterday, which was a surprise. We always use a relative pronoun, who, which, whose, or whom, to introduce a non-defining relative clause. Here's an example. Alice, who I studied with, will be starting a career as a teacher. Students ask common questions on this topic. Let's explore answers for all of them. How to determine defining and non-defining relative clauses? That is the question. Anyway, it is easy to distinguish them. The rule is the following. The information in a defining relative clause is essential. We can't leave it out. The information in a non-defining relative clause isn't essential. We can leave it out. Let's look at the following sentence. The teacher that we met yesterday was really kind. If we leave out the relative clause that we met yesterday, the sentence will have no sense. The teacher was really kind. We can't understand which teacher you are specifically talking about. So, that we met yesterday is essential information. This is the defining relative clause. Let's look at another sentence. Lisa, who's retired now, spends a lot of time with her family. We can leave out the relative clause who's retired now without losing the sense. Lisa spends a lot of time with her family. So, who's retired now isn't essential information. This is non-defining clause. When do I need to put a comma? We use commas around non-defining clauses. Memorize. Use commas around unnecessary extra information. In speaking, we often pause at the beginning and end of non-defining clause. Listen to me. And then this man, who I'd never met before, came up and spoke to me. Whom or whose, which to use. Whose is the possessive form of who and is used especially when talking about which person owns something. Here are the examples. Whose is this bag? Whose book is on the table? Whom is the object of a verb or preposition? Compare the sentences. This is George, whose brother went to school with me. Whose means George's brother. This is George, whom I met last Saturday. Whom is the object of the verb met. Can we use relative pronouns with prepositions? Yes. Memorize the rule. When which, who or whom have a preposition, the preposition can come both at the beginning or at the end of the clause. For example, I had a father from whom I inherited a house. I had a father whom I inherited a house from. When that has a preposition, the preposition always comes at the end. I didn't know the grandfather that I inherited the money from. This is all for now. Stay with us and enjoy learning English.